You know why I pulled you over, sir? You're swerving all over back there.
I'm just finishing my deliveries. Maybe
Need your license and registration. Let's keep it simple.
I can explain.
I don't need the speech, just the paperwork, all right?
Look, I'm on the clock trying to...
Sir, we're not going to play games tonight.
I'm tired of being scared.
The dash camera started recording at 10:13 p.m. on a cold Thursday night. A blue delivery car sat pulled over under a buzzing streetlight. A white deputy leaned into the driver's window, his voice sharp and slow, like he was talking to a child who didn't understand English. "Step out of the car, sir. And don't make this harder than it needs to be." Inside the car was a black man with tired eyes and shaking hands. That he hadn't raised his voice, that he hadn't argued, that he had only asked one question. "Can you tell me why you stopped me?" That simple question would ruin careers, expose lies, and force a whole town to watch itself in the mirror. What the officer didn't know, what no one knew yet, was that the man in the driver's seat wasn't just another delivery driver trying to make rent. And the camera caught everything. Before we go any further, take 1 second and hit subscribe so you don't miss stories like this. And drop a comment telling us where you're watching from tonight. Now let's get back to what really happened on that road. "Don't play dumb with me," Deputy Mark Holloway snapped, his hand resting on his belt. "You were swerving all over the road." Terrence Moore blinked. He looked at the officer, then at the empty street behind him. "I wasn't swerving," Terrence said softly. "I was avoiding potholes." Holloway scoffed. A sharp, ugly sound. "Ah, that's what they all say." They all. The words hung in the air. Terrence's fingers tightened around the steering wheel. His knuckles were dry and cracked from hours of lifting boxes. His delivery uniform was faded, one sleeve stitched where it had torn months ago. "License and registration," Holloway said. Slowly. A second patrol car rolled up behind them, lights flashing red and blue across the blue paint of Terrence's car. Phones came out from across the street. Someone started recording. Terrence handed over his papers with care, like they might explode if he moved too fast. Terrence Moore was 42 years old. That he had been widowed for 3 years. His wife, Alana, died from a blood clot after a long shift at the hospital. Since then, Terrence had done what he always did. He worked. He stayed quiet. He kept going. By day he delivered packages. By night, he drove food orders across town. He drove an old blue sedan with a cracked windshield and a soft rattle in the trunk. The car smelled like cardboard, coffee, and pine air fresheners. He didn't look important. That was the problem. What no one could see under that jacket was the faint outline of scars on his arms. What no one could hear in his calm voice was years of command, discipline, and loss. Terrence Moore had once led men through dust and gunfire. But tonight he was just a black man pulled over on a dark road. Holloway studied the license longer than needed. "Delivery driver," he muttered, then louder, "You in a hurry to drop off drugs or something?" Terrence looked up. "I deliver food, sir." Holloway laughed again. "Sure you do." He leaned closer, his flashlight shining straight into Terrence's eyes. "Any weapons in the car?" "No, sir." "You sure about that?" "Yes." Holloway stepped back and signaled to the second officer, Deputy Clay Runnels, who had just arrived. Runnels was younger, taller, quieter. He watched but didn't speak. "Step out of the vehicle," Holloway said again. "Hands where I can see them." Terrence opened the door slowly and stepped onto the cold pavement. His knees ached. His back burned from lifting boxes all day. A small crowd gathered across the street. No one said a word. Holloway circled him like a shark. "You people always act calm," he said. "Then something goes wrong." Terrence swallowed. "I'm just trying to get home," he said. Holloway's voice dropped. "Then you should have followed the law." "I did." That was when Holloway's face hardened. "You calling me a liar?" Terrence hesitated. That pause, just 1 second, was all Holloway needed. "Turn around." Hands on the hood. Metal rang as cuffs were pulled out. Terrence felt something crack inside his chest. As Holloway pressed him against the hood, Terrence finally spoke the truth he had carried for years. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "I'm tired," he said. "I'm tired of being scared of people who are supposed to protect me." The words hit harder than shouting ever could. Holloway froze. Not because he felt sorry, but because he felt seen. The camera caught his jaw tighten. His eyes darted to the phone's recording. "What did you say?" Holloway snapped. "I said I'm tired," Terrence repeated. "I work. I follow rules. I stay quiet. And I'm still treated like I'm dangerous." Silence. Cars passed by, unaware that history was cracking open under that streetlight. Runnels shifted his weight. He looked uncomfortable. "Holloway," he said quietly, "maybe we should?" Holloway cut him off. "I've got this." He tightened the cuffs too hard. Terrence winced but didn't cry out. Holloway leaned close and whispered so only Terrence and the camera could hear. Maybe if you people stopped playing victim, things would be easier. That sentence would be replayed millions of times. As Holloway walked back to his cruiser, Terrence lifted his head. "Deputy," he said calmly. Holloway turned, annoyed. "What?" "There's something you should know," Terrence said. Holloway rolled his eyes. "Save it for the judge." Terrence nodded. "That's who I used to brief," he said. Holloway laughed. Loud and cruel. "Yeah, okay." But Runnels didn't laugh. Because he had seen the tattoo on Terrence's wrist. Faded. Military. Old unit. Runnels' face changed. And somewhere down the road, sirens began to echo. The camera kept rolling. The cuffs stayed tight. The night held its breath. Deputy Holloway still thought he was in control. He had no idea that in less than 10 minutes, everything he believed about power, race, and authority was about to collapse. On camera. And Terrence Moore stood there, quiet and steady, waiting for the truth to arrive. The blue and red lights kept spinning, the camera kept blinking, and the night kept listening. Terrence Moore stood cuffed against the hood of his own car, breathing slow. He did not fight. He did not beg. He stared at the street ahead like he had done so many times before, waiting for something heavy to pass. Deputy Mark Holloway leaned into his cruiser, already typing. His shoulders were loose now. Confident. Like this stop was just another story he'd tell later about doing his job. Deputy Clay Runnels didn't move. His eyes stayed on Terrence's wrist. The tattoo was old. Faded ink shaped like an eagle and a broken chain. Under it, numbers. Not random. Unit numbers. The kind you don't forget once you've seen enough of them. Runnels swallowed. "Holloway," he said again, louder this time. "You might want to slow down." Holloway didn't even turn around. "I said I've got it." Runnels took a step closer to Terrence. "Sir," he asked quietly, "where did you serve?" Terrence looked at him for the first time. "Iraq," he said. "Then Afghanistan. Then places I'm not allowed to name." The words were flat. Not proud. Not angry. Just true. Holloway turned slowly. "What did you just say?" he asked, laughing again. "You telling war stories now?" Terrence met his eyes. "I'm not telling stories," he said. "I'm answering a question." The laughter died halfway. The sirens that had been far away grew louder. Closer. A black SUV pulled up first. No lights. No markings. Just quiet authority. Then another. Then a third. Men and women stepped out. Suits. Jackets. One woman wore a simple coat with a pin on the collar shaped like a star. The crowd across the street leaned forward. Phone shook. Runnels straightened like a student caught cheating. Holloway frowned. "What the hell is this?" The woman with the pin walked toward Terrence. "Mr. Moore," she said. Holloway's head snapped around. "You know him?" She nodded. "Yes, deputy. We do." She reached for Terrence's cuffs. Holloway stepped forward. "Hey, don't touch my detainee." The woman didn't look at him. "Remove the cuffs," she said calmly. Holloway laughed once. "You don't give me orders." She finally turned. "I do tonight," she said. She showed a badge. Not police. Not county. Federal. The kind Holloway had only seen on TV. Runnels took a sharp breath. The woman unlocked the cuffs herself. The metal fell away. Terrence rubbed his wrist slowly. "Terrence Moore," she said to the camera, clear and loud. "Decorated Army Intelligence Officer. Bronze Star. Purple Heart. Currently serving as a senior civilian advisor on domestic security oversight." The street went silent. Holloway's mouth opened. Close. That's not possible," he said. "He's a delivery driver." Terrence nodded. "At night." He looked at Holloway. Really looked at him. "I deliver food because my wife is gone," Terrence said. "Because my son wants to go to college. Because service doesn't pay like people think." The woman turned to Holloway. "And because he believes in earning quietly," she added. A man in a suit stepped forward. "Deputy Holloway, you are being relieved of duty pending investigation." Holloway's face drained of color. "For what?" he snapped. "I stopped him for swerving." The man raised a tablet. The dash cam footage played. The words echoed back into the night. "You people always act calm. Maybe if you people stop playing victim." The crowd gasped. Runnels closed his eyes. Another officer stepped up behind Holloway. "Sir," he said, "please hand over your weapon." Holloway stared around, trapped. "This is ridiculous," he said. "I didn't know who he was." Terrence spoke, calm as stone. "That's the point. The words hit harder than any shout. You didn't stop me because of who I am, Terrence continued. You stopped me because of what you thought I was. Holloway's hands shook as he unclipped his belt. The woman with the pin faced the camera. This footage will be reviewed, she said. And released. Phones went up higher. Holloway's knees buckled. He sat on the curb, suddenly small. A woman from the crowd began to cry that a man shook his head in shame. Runnels walked up to Terrence. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I should have spoken sooner. Terrence nodded. Next time, he said. Do. The woman with the pin turned to Terrence. We can take you home, she said. Terrence looked at his car. The box is in the back. The half-finished route. I'll finish my deliveries, he said. People are waiting. She smiled. Of course they are. She paused. Thank you. For your service. Then and now. Terrence opened his car door. Before he got in, he looked at Holloway one last time. I was scared tonight, Terrence said. Not of you. Of becoming angry like you. He closed the door. The engine started. As Terrence drove off, the camera stayed on the empty road. Later, when the footage went viral, people asked why he stayed calm. Why he didn't yell. Why he didn't fight. Terrence answered once in a single line. Power doesn't need to scream. And that line stuck. If this story moved you, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one. And tell me in the comments. Do you think true justice starts with knowing who someone is? Or simply treating them like a human being? Your voice matters.